Good morning, everyone. We are so appreciative of having you this morning to join us in this exciting webinar. You are warmly welcome, and it's been a rainy morning here in Ghana, and I hope you are in the cool of your office whilst you listen to us. Before we go on, we will lay down a few rules. I think all the mics have been muted. If you would have a question or a comment, you're welcome to put your question or comment in the chat box, and then we will um, read it out for everyone to listen. If you also want to say anything, please, you're welcome to react by raising up your hand, and then we would allow you, give you the permission to also speak to us. On the webinar this morning, we are expecting about 500 people to join, and we say thank you for taking your time to join us this morning. My name is Richard Omari. I'm an associate director of Deloitte, and I'm joined on this webinar by Dr. Kwabena Situ, who is also going to give us a word. And then we have partners and then directors across the firm who are also into fraud and risk management. You would see people like Clayton, who is a partner from our South African office. You would see Asafuache, who is well versed when it comes to forensics and then fraud investigations in Ghana. We have Babajide, who is also a fraud and a forensics expert in Nigeria. So it means that we are bringing you the West African and South African, and let us say an all African perspective to this webinar. We also have sorry. We also have Sherif who will be giving us insight when it comes to cybersecurity issues in Ghana and in Africa or on the continent at large. And so please be rest assured, be patient with us and then listen and then put down your questions and then we would answer them. So without much ado, I would invite Dr. Kwabena Situ to give us a word and then we would kick off the sessions. So, Dr. Situ, if you can hear me.
Hello, Richard. Can you hear
Yes,
me?
doc. Yes, Dr. Situ. Please, we want to see
Okay.
your handsome
Okay,
face.
great. Are we okay? Am I audible, everyone? Good
You-
morning, everyone. And
You're 100%
okay, welcome to this very important webinar. First of all, I'd like to thank our country managing partner, Daniel Owusu, who graciously, has given us the opportunity to organize this very important webinar because, when it comes to fraud, fraud is something that makes a company loses money a lot. Resources that could have been channeled to other areas to grow the company is being, lost to fraud. So it is a very topical issue that businesses, especially in the insurance industry, we need to start dealing with it. You know Deloitte to be very proactive when it comes to things pertaining to regulations and standards and all that. But we thought it wise that look, this is an issue. In fact, it is a canker that we need to deal with, and we need to deal with it squarely. You could imagine that even in Ghana, we lose about 5% of the revenue to occupational fraud. So this is something that needs to be dealt with because resources are going into places that need not to go to. So very, very important. And when it comes to fraud, we are dealing with either an internal fraud or an external one. In fact, with the internal one, you could, find a way to manage it and all that. But even the most dangerous and most harmful one is the one which is not close by, the external, which is the cyber security aspect of the fraud. So fraud is an important thing that we need to deal with. So through this webinar, what we seek to do is basically to share knowledge, also get some input from you, And then we see how this can be tackled squarely. All right. We see how this can be tackled squarely. And I think this is a very good platform, and you can always trust Deloitte that we think about the industry and we want to ensure that some of your headaches that as CEOs, as various people in various positions within the industry, some of the headaches that you go to bed with, we help you to manage those headaches and eventually help you to take those headaches from you. So we are here to share knowledge. We are here to help. We are here to also make sure that the issues that you deal with on a daily basis when it comes to fraud, especially in respect of claims, we have we are able to help you tackle it. So we have experts. We've put the best within the Deloitte fraternity to come and speak to you, to come and share some of the insights that they have when it comes to this particular topic. So I will leave you in the hands of Rachel to moderate this very important session. And then please feel free. If you have questions, you can put it in the chat box. We will respond to it. Those that we will not be able to respond to when we are sending you the presentation slide and all the materials we share with you this morning, we are going to ensure that the answers also comes with it. So relax and enjoy the session. And please, my contact, it will be shared. If you have anything at all that you want to ask, apart from even this specific topic we are dealing with, give me a call, send me an email, and we'll be there to help you. So thank you very much. Let the game begin.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Situ. And I know participants would forever trust us when it comes to delivery and supporting their various industries. And so, without spending much time, we would want to invite Clayton. Clayton, we want to see you. Participants will want to know who you are and then what you do. And what do you tell us when it comes to fraud? Yes, we can
Thank you
see.
very much.
Yeah.
Just from my perspective, I think fraud continues unabated across many sectors and across many geographies, and the experiences that we see across organizations are similar in nature. And the most important element is around maximizing prevention and detection. The need for investigations will always be there, but essentially organizations need to start looking at leveraging technology in their prevention and detection mechanisms to ensure that the incidence of fraud reduce, and to have a clear view of who owns those fraud risks and the mitigation factors associated with that.
So with the experience that you have, Clayton, what are some of the frauds that you identify on the continent?
Yes. So definitely. So, I mean, it goes without saying that the risk of claims fraud is always there. And that could be in respect of life insurance. It could be disability. It could be any form of policy in relation to a medical claim as well. But very importantly, also, organizations need to start looking or maintain their focus on the actual new business that is being written in terms of new clients, new policies, and the levels and volumes of business that is being taken on board. How is that being assessed from a fraud prevention and risk identification perspective? And then very importantly, we mentioned earlier, internally and externally. So as with any organization, not only in insurance, there needs to be a focus on internal measures to prevent and detect internal fraud, as well as external from individual players as well as potential syndicates that may target organizations from a not only from a life claims perspective, but also from an investment perspective, because that's where investment policies come into play and may form a key target from a syndicated point of view.
Yeah. So thank you very much, Clayton. Now, I'm sure someone would be in there, and what is going on in the mind is, yes, we see fraud claims, etc., all that. Can you give us an example? I mean, being a forensic person, of the form and the nature and how it took, or the process went when it came to the fraud that you witnessed or you've identified.
So I think one of the key risks that organizations face globally stem from identity theft. And if we take identity theft across this industry and sector, and financial services as a whole, that continues to be one of the key factors that drive fraud risk. Essentially, from an identity theft perspective, it may result in fraudulent new business. It could result in a fraudulent claim as well. So I think one of the key elements there for organizations is to ensure that they have robust mechanisms in place to validate policyholders, to validate claimants, and to validate dependents in terms of ensuring, that from a know your client perspective, that those matters are in place, together with obviously having the requisite procedures in place that when there are any changes to a policy, those are vetted accordingly. So if we take the identity theft element, that could feed into multiple factors around potentially fraudulent claims, redemption of investments, changes to policies or beneficiaries. It's quite an intricate process in terms of managing that from an end-to-end basis, but ensuring that those risks are identified and adequately mitigated.
Hmm. I see. Okay, so at this point, let me bring in Ni Asafwache. So Ni Asafwache, you are a director here, and you lead the forensics department from the Ghanaian perspective. Let me pick your mind, Asaf. What are some of the fraud that you identify in Ghana? And Baba, please get ready. I'll call you in for the Nigerian perspective. See, Asaf.
So for us, it cuts across. Yeah, it cuts across. We can look at fraud that happens from two perspectives in terms of hard and then soft. Soft in the sense of these are regular guys. They've not started out to defraud, but opportunistically they realize, look, I can exaggerate my claim and then get more out of it. But the hard guys are those who, from the get-go, they are out to defraud insurance company. Oftentimes, what is more common is the soft one. And I see it as stemming from the way insurance is perceived. Globally, tax fraud is number one when it comes to the most common fraud. Insurance fraud follows closely. And one thing they have in common, tax and insurance, is that it's seen as a necessary evil. You don't see what that money you are putting in is going to be used for. So people feel justified in taking money from the taxman or taking money from the insurer. So very often, a very common thing that happens is people look, these guys are just taking money from, I don't see what they are using it for. I must well take something from them too. And so they exaggerate their claims and so on. It's very common. I mean, those on the call are industry people, so they see this happening quite often. Yeah.
I see. So, Asaf, before I bring in Baba, we have the live businesses from the Ghanaian perspective. We have the live business, we have the general business, we have the health insurance. We also have the reinsurance side. Are you able to give us in these businesses, and we also have the composites, in this business, where does fraud heavily sits?
So it's quite common in the life side when people are filing death certificates and stuff that are not real. The person has not actually died. In the general side, you see a lot of it in the motor claim side. So a lot of people exaggerate the claims they are making. They've had dents and dinks all over, and they have a small scratch. They make a claim on that and want to take as much as possible from the insurance company. So these are quite often common ones we see. Perhaps Babajide also share what he experiences in his sector too, but that's what we see often happening here.
All right. So
So
you would
medical
advise.
insurance, life, and then
I see. So you
yeah,
advise these
please go
guys
on.
to find a lot of measures to mitigate all these. Okay. Clayton, any remarks to that?
Yes, I mean, it's definitely a valid point, and I think that talks to what organizations should be doing. And I mean, one of the key elements now, number one, is to ensure that you conduct regular fraud risk assessments across the business, not only from an enterprise level, but from a process level. So the questions that we need to ask ourselves are: when did we last run risk assessment across new business, across claims, premium administration, intermediaries, etc. And those fraud risk assessments would feed into your risk register, which would allow you then to adequately mitigate that risk. And the importance of the fraud risk assessments is not a once-off. This is an ongoing process because, in my experience, as you mitigate those risks, there's opportunity for individuals to identify other weaknesses within the process in terms of changes. When new policy types are developed and rolled out, there's risks associated with that as well. So one of those key elements is having the fraud risk assessments in place. That's an essential. Having proper mechanisms to report fraud. And research continues to show that hotlines are one of the key elements in terms of reporting that, but also creating awareness amongst employees, amongst intermediaries. And that awareness can vary. You can have your generic awareness around what is fraud, what is corruption, what is theft, but you need to start drilling down into more specific type awareness for the claims teams, for the new business teams, how they would identify particular schemes and fraud risks. But it all starts with managing it from a proactive point of view, and the fraud risk assessments are critical.
Mm. Yeah, thank you so much, Clayton. That's very, very insightful. Means that we need to have the fraud risk assessment done. We need to have a mechanism to report fraud, and then also create an awareness center. Yeah, so everyone must have this at the back of of their mind when it comes to fraud. Okay, let me move to my neighbor, Nigeria. Baba, Jide.
Yeah. I'm here.
Yes, we want to pick from your perspective, from the Nigerian side. What are some of the frauds that you are identifying?
Okay. Thank you very much. I would say that, like you rightly stated, when you look at the environment, the Nigerian environment, very top of mind is the identity fraud. So you find that recently in Nigeria, we've had what we call Japa, right? And where a lot of people were traveling or leaving the country, seeking greener pastures outside the country. And so you realize that some had life insurance, and identity theft has now become something that people are then using, even with collusion with internal staff in some of these insurance companies, having to present claims that at the end of the day, you realize that there's actually no justification. Another one that we've also seen is group life, where companies are now claiming all sorts of amounts because they paid for group life insurance, and then for one reason or the other, there's a so-called claim to insurance companies. So you find that there's been a surge. But I must also talk about the health insurance. I like that you mentioned that. That is one critical aspect of insurance that perhaps organizations, companies need to start focusing on, particularly if you play or if you operate in that space. The health insurance, you see ghost enrollee schemes, you see things around fictitious claims, fraudulent disbursements, where hospitals are encouraging enrollees to raise certain claims just so that they can make the claims from the insurance companies, the health insurance companies. So we tend to find a lot of times many of these things have to do with mainly claims. And then from the flip side of it, even the issuance of policies, wherein insurance companies are not getting the real value in terms of revenue, but then they are also people are purportedly issuing certificates in the name of some of these insurance companies. And I'll say the regulator has done something recently, and I hope that with time this continues to improve the interest of Nigerians or enrollees, beneficiaries to insurance
Oh,
matters. Thank you.
very, very interesting one. All right. But now, Baba, let me put you here. So, given some of these that you have mentioned, what are some of the steps that insurers can take to mitigate these fraud issues?
Okay, thank you. So I
And
would say that,
please be practical.
yeah, I
Yeah.
would say that when you look at insurance and you look at the modes of fraud or the types of fraud typologies that we've seen in recent times, you realize that a lot of the fraudsters are using technology. And we say something as forensic practitioners that if you want to catch fraud, you need to think like a fraudster. Now, what that means is you don't have to act, you don't have to commit fraud, right? But you need to think like a fraudster and begin to reimagine and begin to determine what are some of those things. I would say fraudsters are using technology. Insurance companies too need to start thinking technology to counter the fraud. Everybody is worried about AI, but I'm telling you, there are good use cases of artificial intelligence and the likes. So, for very simple thing that I would say, the policy that you are issuing as an insurance company, what kind of technology features are you using technology to prevent or to safeguard the policies? Secondly, you also need to start working in collaboration. Enough of trying to do things in silos. So insurance companies, similar to other players, need to identify the players, the regulators. You need to also identify the financial institutions because that's where money pass through, and start to think of how do we collaborate and how do we have databases that can easily assist us as insurance companies to be able to verify. Clayton mentioned something about awareness. Awareness of the internal staff, awareness of the populace. People have to be aware of what exactly do we need to do? How do we do it? What exactly? How do I verify that my policy, for instance, is legitimate? How do I verify in terms of claims? Of course, if you have a database, right, it also helps people to understand that if you want to make a claim, there are certain things you must do. And some of these things too, insurance companies too, also need to start thinking and being proactive. I would say that then there's also the aspect of periodic reconciliation. You cannot wait.
Mhm.
I'm referring to what Clayton said. You are releasing a new product to town. Whilst you do fraud risk assessment, it's not a one-off. You also need to ensure that even as you go along, there's a need for reconciliation. There is a need for you to check some of the policies that you have. Can you indeed confirm whether these policies are true or whether what your policies are saying does it match the revenue that you have actually generated? So I'll say that with these few points, looking at our own market here, maybe in West Africa, these are some of the points that I think organizations or companies have to start putting into place. Thank you. Richard, I cannot hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes,
very.
you mentioned something on collaborations. So who should collaborate with who?
So I would say that gone are the days, even within insurance, the insurance ecosystem, insurance companies have to collaborate. Either you are in the life, you're in the health, in the composite, in insurance, wherever aspect of the insurance ecosystem you are, insurance companies need to. You also need to start looking at how do you play with regulators? How do you begin to have such synergy? Um, because if you have frequent interactions with regulators, it is presumed that you are able to let the regulators understand some of the challenges, and regulators will not just release circulars or guidelines without taking into consideration some of the pain points that insurance companies are going through. I also believe that financial institutions, the time has come for you to also engage or have such collaboration with financial institutions. So I would say that if you pick some of these three, um, well, maybe we can start from there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Baba.
And
I
Richard,
see Asaf want to
if
add
I may ask
something.
you,
Yeah, Asaf, please go ahead.
yes, I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, you are loud and clear.
Great. So in addition to what Ajay, said, in other places they formed investigative groups. So for instance, in the UK they have Insurance Fraud Bureau. France has Alpha. In Norway they have a law that allows, in good faith, information to be shared across the industry of issues that they've had. Because the problem is those who are victims of these frauds, they don't talk to each other. And so it's easy for fraud perpetrators to replicate these frauds across various places. The people who commit fraud, there are some people who commit the fraud in the banking sector and another sector. So if there is an open culture of
Looks like
you have a particular
Asaf,
problem
yeah.
with
Okay, Asaf,
in,
looks like somebody is trying to fraud your internet. So please, you
Richard,
can
just a
please
quick comment.
try and detect that one for us. Okay, yes, Dr. Situ.
Yeah, so I think this is where we need to the instead of the National Insurance Commission, we really
Hmm.
need to come up
Okay.
strongly with data, because as it stands now, you don't really get readily available data, some statistics on fraud cases within the insurance industry.
Yeah.
So I think this will be a perfect call for us to get the commission to really come on board and start gathering data, which is
Mm.
very, very important. Gathering data to be able to start now telling the story of fraud and things, and various insights could also be given when it comes to these insurance fraud. So there's a lot of work that the National
Insurance.
Insurance Commission here needs to do.
Mm. All right. Okay. Now, thank you very much, Dr. Situ, for that. So I'm sure we have the NIC on, and they are listening, and so it's well taken. But let me just do a quick switch. I think we are looking into the insurance industry, and the understanding I have is that recently, the National Insurance Commission listed even some of the insurance companies to go through a sort of a cybersecurity assessment. And then on this, Sheriff, if you can give us a quick background to that, and then what it entails on the issue of cybersecurity.
Okay, thank you, Richard. Please confirm I'm audible and I'm audible on the
Very
call.
audible. Yeah.
Great, thank you. On that, been stemming from the background you've given, currently in Ghana, about 25% of the insurance companies in Ghana, when I say insurance companies in Ghana, I'm referring to life insurance, non-life insurance, and the reinsurance companies. About 25% of them have been designated as what we call the critical information infrastructure organizations. And obviously, there's a cybersecurity authority that did that designation, because these 25% I mentioned are from the perspective of the Ministry of Communication and Digitalization, through the CSA, and put this way, Cybersecurity Authority. They are of the opinion, of the view that these 25% insurance companies are very critical to the sustainability of our economy, or the life and safety of the citizenry of Ghana, and hence they've been designated as such. And once they've been designated as critical information infrastructure, they are supposed to conform to, in fact, two things. One has to do with the Act, the Cybersecurity Act, Act 1038. Of course, that 1038 is applicable to all entities, but specifically, these insurance companies that have been designated as CIs have key rules in terms of when it
comes to compliance, they have heavy liftings in there. Let me put it this way. And the other bit has to do with the regulation side. So the entities that the Cybersecurity Authority are designated as critical information infrastructure, which includes these insurance companies I've mentioned, 25% of them. They are also supposed to comply with the directive from CSA, the Cybersecurity Authority, which referred to as the Directive for the Protection of CI. And this directive has several components. There are a number of requirements that these insurance companies, in our case, have to conform to. And also, the CSA released other directives and guidelines, just like what you mentioned, for these insurance companies to comply with. So it just to, help sanitize the space, protect customers, protect the economy, protect livelihood. And it's on that backdrop that, these directives are coming. Of course, NIC is driving that, but it's a collaborative effort between NIC and the Cybersecurity Authority. Yeah.
Yeah, no, very interesting and very insightful. So, and I'm sure the 25% insurance companies, they've been communicated to by now. But given the discussions that we are having, I'd want to find out, so what are some of the current trend of cybersecurity?
Okay, thank you. So globally, in fact, let me speak from the
And
global.
please limit it to the insurance industry for us for
Sure,
now. Okay, cool.
sure, obviously. So one key when it comes to attack trends, let me put it this way, ransomware attack is very key, where these bad guys, in fact, I will always use guys, but I want us to use guys and ladies. It's not always about guys, where these bad guys get hold of data belonging to insurance companies. Let me use that word, lock them. We technically say encrypt, but they lock them and demand for money before they grant access, or they unlock that data for the insurers to use. This is one of the key attacks. Then two, data breach. So data breach, basically, these bad guys gain unauthorized access to systems and information belonging to insurance companies. And I think 2 months ago in the US, about 3 insurance companies suffered cyber attack. I think one was Philadelphia Insurance, Erie Insurance, and I think First Insurance Company of Hawaii. In just a single month, just June this year, they suffered cyber attack. And in their case, it was more of unauthorized access to systems and personal data of insurers. Then there's the third one I'll mention is supply chain attack. So supply chain attack is basically a situation where insurers get attacked through their suppliers, or some will call service provider vendors, or service providers. Let me put this way: service providers or vendors. They get attacked through these partners. Let me put this way, and it's one of the key areas of concern. In fact, according to Security Scorecard, it released a report somewhere, I think February this year. A Security Scorecard is a security company, and it mentioned that 59% of the breaches in the insurance industry involved external parties, which means that the service providers we're using, the vendors we are using, they open us up to some attack. We may be secured, at an optimum level, but if these guys or these partners are not secured or as equally secured as us, we get breached. Then the other one has to do with social engineering, where staff and of course stakeholders within the insurance space get deceived through varied ways to either disclose information, share information, or even grant access to certain systems. And the final point I want to make here, I'll say it's a kind of a remote, but it's something that's happening, especially the insurers who are into cyber insurance. Insurance companies who are into cyber insurance are currently need to pay high claims for cyber insurance due to the rise in cyber attacks. And we have what we call Coalition. Coalition is a player in the insurance space. It released a report this year, and it's called the Cyber Claims Report. It says the average claim paid per cyber incident is just around 115,000 USD. So just imagine, what it looks like due to cyber attack. these entities, these insurers are losing that or paying out that much, obviously, which is going to affect their bottom line. So basically, in a nutshell, these are the trends I can talk about.
Wow, wow, wow. Very interesting. So it means that, do I say guys and ladies, but let's use the word guys. People are becoming, yeah, more sophisticated. And in the event of getting more sophisticated, we also need to be sophisticated to be able to deal with them. Are you able to give us some of these sophisticated means by which we can deal with these issues?
Okay, thank you. So the point I'm coming to, I mean, I want to mention the they are simple and sophisticated, let me put it this way. So
Okay.
one is to ensure that insurance companies we have robust cybersecurity governance. So governance is everything. If the tone is not set right at the top, everything else will fail. So by governance, by robust cybersecurity governance, I mean we should have the right cybersecurity policies. We should set the right objectives, which obviously would have to align with the enterprise-wide objective. We need to make available the needed resources to ensure whatever we need to do as a business, we do it, I mean, specifically within the cybersecurity space, and also ensure that the feedback on the performance of cybersecurity is at the heart of board discussion. That's a very important point. Then the second one, obviously I've mentioned, but I still want to reiterate that policy also drives everything. The right governance, policy set the tone, everything that is supposed to be done relating to the use of cybersecurity or the use of IT systems, let me put it this way. Policy drives everything. So we need to have the right policy, which obviously need to be communicated. Then the third one has to do with the adoption of cybersecurity standards and frameworks. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. Whatever is happening has happened before, and that's why we have standards. So insurers can adopt security standards like the ISO 27001, the NIST Cybersecurity Framework, and the Cloud Security Alliance Cloud Control Metrics. A good number of the insurance companies are utilizing cloud, and for us to be sure, or for them to be safe of the service they are using, they can rely on the Cloud Security Alliance cloud control metric. So yes, and the fourth one has to do with getting the right cybersecurity tools. Babajide mentioned tools, and I think you also kind of touch on it. But the point here is tools, we are looking at the right tools and not the expensive tools. We just have to make sure that the tools that we need to protect our cyberspace as insurers, they are the right for their job. You can have, I mean, two solutions or two tools, or I mean, one maybe 3 or 4 times expensive than the other. But if they can perform the same task that you want to, or mitigate the risk you want to, handle, then you go for the right tool. And of course, being cost sensitive, basically that is it. And the final one, which I think Clayton and Babajide touched on, awareness. But let me call it training and awareness, because if you have the right tools, if you want to adopt standards and you've not trained individual staff to acquire the necessary skills and knowledge to be able to operate these tools, I mean, it is as good as you not having any tools at all. So training is very, very key, especially for the technical team. And awareness. With that awareness, I call it the least expensive and the simplest and the most effective control to mitigating cyber threats. So basically, these are the mitigants I would want to share with the house.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sheriff. It means, from what you have said, is that the tone must be set at the board level.
Excellent.
The board members, please pay attention to it for this for us, because it needs to be discussed at the boardroom, and critical decisions needs to be made. Dr. Situ, I see you want to chip in something here.
Yes, and I think I want Sheriff to probably touch on a bit on vulnerability testing.
Okay.
Because that is something that companies don't do. So basically, Sheriff, if I'm right, or you can get me on track, we come in there, try to hack your system, and see how robust your system is. So, Sheriff, if you could just say one or two things about that, and then I will add something to it after you said it. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Dr. City, for that. So, insurance companies we use a lot of IT systems, and these systems may be exposed to some weaknesses we call vulnerabilities. And for us to know our posture, Clayton mentioned about conducting insurance risk assessment. So, vulnerability assessment is also a way of identifying the risk within your IT infrastructure. And it's very good for organizations or insurers to undertake this exercise. It may sound expensive, let me put it this way, but in actual sense, I mean the return on investment, I mean you can't imagine it. So organizations or insurance need to, employ whether internal resources or external resources to identify those vulnerabilities within the IT infrastructure. And if possible, proceed, as Dr. Situ mentioned, proceed to try to exploit the weaknesses to see how easy or how difficult it will be if a hacker, someone malicious, had that opportunity to exploit the system. So this needs to be done regularly.
So, and in Deloitte, Sheriff, we have a lot of hackers. We will come and hack your system for you and tell you where the issues are. So get in touch. It's very important. I mean, it's better to be on the is it the preventive side or defensive side, so that you know that your system is robust enough to, withstand all sorts of attacks. So get your system hacked. Let us come and help you hack your system. Let's see how well your system is. I mean, it's very, very important. So vulnerability testing is a must. In fact, it is a must.
Yeah.
Then, Richard, on the issues of policies.
Yes.
I have realized that most people, especially when it comes to insurance fraud, claim fraud, we don't have policies on prevention. We don't have policies on detection. So there must be well laid out, approved by the board policies on how the company, a whole policy around prevention and detection. And I think if Clinton could just, touch a bit on that for us, and then I'll go to my last point, Richard. Sorry, it's like I've taken your job, but sorry. So Clinton, can you just touch on policies that insurance entities should have when it comes to prevention of insurance claim fraud and then detection of insurance, and any other policy that you think should be in place?
Certainly, I think that's a very important point. And, it starts with an organization's fraud strategy. So how, from a strategic perspective, how has that strategy been approved? And that would talk to fraud risk from a forensic perspective, from a cyber perspective, from an internal audit, internal controls perspective. That holistic strategy would then push down the types of policies that need to be in place within an organization. And those policies can include, amongst others, a whistleblowing policy, a fraud response plan, essentially mapping out how matters are addressed once they're detected, timeframes, accountabilities, who's responsible for closing that out, and the reporting of those matters either to the authorities, to the board and risk committees, to the audit committees and the like. Then coupled with that, you would have typically a conflict of interest policy. And in the realm of insurance fraud, that would relate to, for example, conflicts of interest between, for example, employees and intermediaries, employees and brokers, etc. And coupled with that, you would have gifts policies. In other words, particularly around the new business. I mean, have there been any gifts received or provided to or from clients or intermediaries? And those are typically the types of policies that would support that strategy. And the importance of those policies is underpinned by the strategy, namely in the sense that what is the organization's stance on fraud? Is it zero tolerance? And when we say zero tolerance, do we really mean every instance, regardless of value, will be prosecuted? And if it is zero tolerance, how are we communicating that across our employees, our intermediaries, and our clients for that matter, from a fraud risk perspective? Because that strategy needs to take into account, and we spoke about collaboration earlier, which is extremely important across industry. But there also needs to be internal collaboration between internal audit, forensics, IT, cyber. How are the outcomes of the fraud risk assessment translating from an internal audit perspective into controls testing? And it's only once you pull that net together, underpinned by the strategies and the policies, do you have a holistic view of where that fraud risk sits.
Wow, that is really insightful, Clinton. I think so. Fraud strategy is a must from all that you've just described. I mean, if you are an insurance company, even any other company, that you are listening to us this morning and you don't have a fraud strategy, then there is a big problem. Because I think Clinton also listed some policies that you should also be thinking about. Like, I like the gift policy. Do you have a gift policy? Do you have a conflict of interest policy? These are very, very important policies that you should have. So, Richard, so these are very key things that businesses need to wake up. And when I said the thing about the hacking thing, right? People were laughing, but it's a serious thing. You get an external party to hack into your system, takes all the money you've worked for, takes all the money, but Deloitte come in, we hack your system, we don't take money. So take advantage of some of these things and make sure that you are doing the right thing, because we are in an environment which is already complex and it's getting complex by the day. There is AI, and I think I will get Clinton to just touch on how AI is also playing a role in all these things. So the environment is getting complex by the day. So you cannot just stay where you are, still be doing the old things without having certain things in place. Like what Clinton just said to us, fraud strategy. Fraud strategy. You need to have it. And then, Richard, my last thing before I go, gap assessment. I think that is also a very important thing, because with the gap assessment, it helps you to know where you stand. So these are important things that you need to do as an insurance company in this new era. And I think it will go a long way to help the business. So the board members that are on this call, please, you need to call for these things. Otherwise, by the time you realize you are working for a third party, So thank you so much, Richard. And I think before I leave, if Clinton could just touch on the AI bit, how does AI even make the whole thing very complex, that we should be taking these things that we are discussing seriously? Yeah, Clinton. Thanks.
Thank you. And before I touch on that, I think it's also important just to build on what you've just mentioned. Is it's important to have the policies in place, but it's also important to have technology in place that's going to verify what's coming out of those policies. So, for example, you have a gifts and a conflict of interest policy. How are you verifying that, or are you taking it at face value? Because, I've been in forensics for approximately 29 years, and I understand that validation is required. So just as we test internal controls, we need to verify, are our gift declarations correct? Are our conflicts of interest declarations correct, etc. And And just on the terms of AI, I mean, that's something that obviously globally is being leveraged, and there's various solutions in respect of e-discovery, etc., that organizations can leverage from that perspective. But again, I think that's going to be underpinned by the initial fraud risk assessment, because one can only adequately address your risks with the use of technology if you understand them. But you can also leverage technology as part of that understanding. So you could leverage specific tools from an e-discovery perspective to proactively, for example, review contracts, review policies across many thousands or hundreds of thousands of policyholders. And indeed, there are solutions that, from a fraud prevention and detection perspective, are in fact being leveraged in that space. And just one further point on that is, in my experience with fraud, typically, an individual who's prone to perpetrate fraud or a syndicate that may be in the fraudulent activities would tend to target the weakest link. So they would test organizations to see, who hasn't who doesn't have the most robust processes in place. So the question is that we need to ask ourselves is, as an organization, are organizations ahead of the curve or behind the curve? Because that will also determine the propensity for you to experience fraud.
Yeah, I think that's really insightful, Clayton. Thank you so much.
Yeah. All right.
And when you said you've been in this work for over 29 years, I could imagine all sort of tips you've been able to
Arrest.
yeah. So
Okay.
thanks, and I think very insightful, Richard. Thank you so much. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Situ. And I think Clayton and then Sheriff, please stay on. And Baba, you're also welcome to come in. Sheriff, especially when you were speaking, you mentioned use the right tools, use the right tools. So it's leading me to the Q&A. Somebody is saying, what are these right tools?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. So, when it comes to tools are procured. Therefore, tools are controls. They are procured to solve an issue, or they are procured to mitigate a risk. So if you know your risk, if you know your risk, you should know the right tool to fix the issue. In fact, there are organizations I know that they have a particular risk they want to mitigate with a tool. Now, the tool they are going to procure is doing so many things. And yes, what the control they need is part of the tool. But if you look at the multiple functionality of that tool, sometimes, I wouldn't say most of the cases, in some of the cases, tools with multiple functionalities tend to not to be too effective, let me put it this way, and may even cost more than those single purpose tools. So if you are mitigating X risk, just make sure you get the tool that will help mitigate that risk. Of course, we are not also, relegating the fact that if you are mitigating, let's say, 5 risk items, and you have a solution which will help you, which has that 5, let's say 5 modules, let me put it this way, modules that will help mitigate that risk. Yes, you can go for it. But the point is, it's a balance between effectiveness of the tool vis-a-vis the cost implication of it. Basically, that is it. Yeah.
Baba, you want to add something? Then Clayton can come in.
No, so I would say that Sheriff is very spot on. You're not going to get, if you don't do like that gap assessment or the risk assessment that has been re-echoed on this webinar, it's going to be difficult for you to say that a certain tool will meet all your requirements. So we've seen cases where tools were used, technology was used in an insurance company to still perpetrate. So the tools that were used for the ERP that was used for, it was different from the technology that was used for the policy, for the premium. Unfortunately, these tools were not synchronizing. So the internal fraud that occurred was a case where people were So you find that what the auditors are looking at is the ERP system, the one that is generally used for all the ledger management. But unfortunately, the marketers and co were perpetrating fraud. And so there's a need for you to do that gap assessment. I don't want to re-echo that point, but it's just to draw your attention that even when you have technology, it is not in all instances. You still need to continuously check and be sure that that technology matches the evolving nature of your business. We've had instances where technology was utilized at the outset, but unfortunately, as the business got bigger, as it took on more parts of the insurance business, the technology started malfunctioning because it wasn't configured for that. So even at that, you still need to continue to evaluate the use of your technology. That's the
Mm.
additional point I want to add. Thank you.
Thank you. So the keyword statement here is that entities must continue to evaluate whether the current systems or tools that they have would continue to be effective with
Exactly.
time and with
Absolutely.
business development. All right.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much. So now there's a question here, and please, participants, please, you are welcome to type in your questions, and then we will take them. And then if you want to also speak, please use the raise hand button, and then we will allow you. There's a question here, very interesting. I think this one should go to Clayton. Very interesting. You have all the suspicions that a claim is fraudulent, yet you do not have the evidence after investigation. Should you pay the full amount or negotiate the amount? And I'm putting this to you because you are 29 years and above experience here.
Yeah. Look, I think it's a difficult question because again, from company to company, it's going to be based on your contractual requirements and the type of policy. Because obviously, ultimately, organizations are there to service their clients and to provide their clients with a service. But I think what that does highlight is, for example, the types of policies. So, for example, is it a disability policy? Is it a life insurance claim? Is it a medical policy? And what are those suspicions? Number one. And this would now tie back to the fraud risk assessment and the detection mechanisms, because the question indicated that we have all the suspicions, but we don't have the evidence. And I suppose my question back would be, have we done everything to get all the evidence that is potentially out there? Because ultimately, organizations are there to service their clients and to abide by their contracts. But what that does highlight is, if you've gone through that process where you are confident that you've used technology, you've done your fraud risk assessments, you have all the fraud controls in place, then typically in those situations, it would normally be referred to some form of internal committee for further assessment. But I think that question's quite difficult to answer because, if you don't have enough evidence, ultimately you're there to service the client. But the question back to the organization is, have we done everything that we need to do?
All right. Okay. So the question, have you done everything that you need to do? All right. Okay. Thank you so much, Clayton. Now there's a question here, and I think this one, I'll push it to Sheriff. Which policies in the non-life businesses are more vulnerable? Is it the AML or the CFT, i.e., combating financial terrorism? Chris.
Okay, so I think the question is not too clear.
So he's
Policies
talking,
being vulnerable.
yeah.
Uh, uh, I'm not too clear. If
So
the
let me
If
question
you
help
can,
out.
okay, cool. All right,
Yeah.
okay.
So AML is anti-money laundering, CFT
Anti-money
is
laundering and
counter.
then
Yeah.
CFT
So I
combating.
would say that
Yeah.
when you look at non-life business, some of the policies, if you mean insurance policies, whereas not company policies, then you're looking into matters around sureties, bonds, and some of those because you realize that those are some of the policies that people will undertake just so that they can perpetrate fraud. You also have people doing insurance on properties because when you look at AML, right, you realize that AML just means, or money laundering rather, is you're trying to legitimize ill-gotten wealth. So, what are some of those assets that fraudsters would typically use to perpetrate money laundering. So it's now a case where those fraudsters are now putting insurance on such to make it appear legitimized, to integrate into the environment. So you realize that maybe casinos, hotels, taking insurance out on those, just such that where you've acquired such assets through ill-gotten wealth, right? And then you're now putting an insurance just so that in the event something happens, some of those are some of the ways in which fraudsters could also try to protect their wealth. So I would say that those are some of the examples that we tend to find. But Clayton, it'd be good to also
Clayton?
get your insights from an essay
Yeah.
point of view.
Yeah. No, I think definitely you've highlighted that, and I think what's important as well is from a technology perspective. Again, we can't reiterate the technology element more enough than before, because also in looking at for example, in terms of the speed with which we're assessing policies and risks, that would typically be also assisted with technology. So, within the insurance sector. An organization also has specific timelines in which they're required to react for clients to maintain that level of customer service.
Interesting stuff. All right. Okay. So some more questions that I think this one would go to. Okay, anyone can pick this. It says, what are the regulatory allowed timelines for investigating potential fraudulent claim? Is there any? Asaf, I mean, in Ghana, is there any? Babajide, is there any that you have seen?
Well, not that I am aware of,
Yeah.
because investigations can have a life of their own. And so if the objective is to get at the truth, yes, you need to spend some time on it.
All
But
right.
I mean, there's the adage of if something a process is lengthened, then you are making the situation worse for the victim here. So you want to do things as quickly as possible, but usually you don't put timelines on these things.
All right. Okay, cool. All right. Thank you very much. So, someone is asking, he mentioned your name, Sheriff. He said, please, what is happening with the 75% insurers in Ghana with regards to the CSA designation? Are they not exposed? And what is the basis of the designation by, I'm sure it's referring to the NIC.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So, the Act 1030, the Cybersecurity Act, gives the Ministry of Communication and Digitalization. I think the name has changed, but I'm still trying to familiarize myself with the new name. So it's giving the ministry or the minister, let me put it this way, the authority to designate entities as CIs. Now, there are several, in fact, globally, wherever you go, there are criteria defined for classifying entities or organizations as critical infrastructure. Now, generally, those responsible consider the fact that if this service or this company goes down, or this company is unable to provide their service, what will be the implication? What's the level of impact on the life and safety of the citizenry of that country? And two, what will be the impact on the economy? So generally, these are the two criteria. Of course, security, national security is it's added to it. So these are, at the basic level, rudimentary, these are the criteria that are considered. But I can't speak for the ministry, but of course, I know, obviously, these are the factors that have been considered in, arriving at that designation, yeah.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much, Sheriff. Okay. When when Deloitte comes to hack you, Dr. Situ, please hear me here. As Dr. Situ said, so did they also help you implement the remediations they would have outlined in their engagement report? Or is it that your sole responsibility, i.e., to hack the company? Dr. Situ, if
Okay,
you are
I
here.
think I can help
Oh,
you. I think I can help
Okay,
you.
cool. All
okay,
right.
okay, Sheriff, go ahead,
Okay,
go ahead.
okay.
And
So
I wanted to say it in my voice.
oh, sure, please then do. Please do. Please do. Please do. Please
No,
do.
we hack and we help to implement
Yeah.
the gaps. So yeah. So talk to us. Talk to us. Yeah.
Exactly that. So, in the support we provide to you by way of the implementation, it's not financial, it's not tool. So, if there's anything you need to do which has to do with procurement, we wouldn't be involved. It will be the responsibility of the client. But what we do is in that space, we play more advisory role in there, and we make sure that you fix what you need to fix. And once confirmed, we rerun the test to be sure that whatever you confirm to have been fixed has been fixed. So basically, that is the practice
Okay. So let
before
me
we
chip
close the
in this.
project.
Let me chip this in, Sheriff. Does it mean that Deloitte, you have licensed hackers?
Yes, in fact, when Dr. Situ mentioned we have hackers, I wanted to qualify. So we have
Yeah.
ethical hackers, we have ethical
Excellent.
hackers, those who
Okay.
have been accredited to hack professionally. Let me put it. So we have a number of them across Africa and globally. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Thank you. I think Josiah is asking if an insurance company gives gifts to its client, what is the threshold that is considered acceptable? Additionally, entities will not provide supporting documents for these gifts. Will the threshold of such gift depend on the entity's policy? I think the answer is yes. Baba, what do you say?
So the answer is yes.
Yeah.
There's no specific amount. You need to evaluate your organization, the industry that you play, knowing the kind of employees you have, knowing the kind of clients that you have. It's dependent on what is approved internally. And so when it comes to gift, where it is, what some organizations would do is no matter the gift, please just declare. Now, for certain threshold, it is required that when you declare, there's a need to return because of the value, because you do not want a situation where it's going to impair your judgment as an insurer, or as somebody working in an insurance company. So it's largely dependent. So there's no exact amount that one is going to say. Organizations have different thresholds that they would typically approve of.
All right. Okay. Thank you. So in our environment, there's risk of fraud in excess medical claims by the service providers. How can insurance companies mitigate this? I think we have discussed this in the earlier session, but I don't know if anybody wants to take some few seconds to react to that. Mitigating health insurance claims, fraud.
Okay, so I will take a stab at that. And that's
Okay.
also a surge. There's been a spike over here in this our own jurisdiction. So I would say that time has come for you to start embedding a bit of biometrics into some of these things. And I'll give a typical example. Something happened recently. It was also in the healthcare industry and had to do with health insurance. Uh, as an insurer, please don't just sit in your offices. You probably also want to take some moment where you need to take some moment, go and check some of these things, do some spot audits for some of your employees or some of your enrollees, I beg your pardon, that have been engaged or that are currently in some of these hospitals. You also need to look at it. You need to start keeping certain data about some of the hospitals that are that you work with. Time has come for you to understand the behavioral patterns of some of these hospitals, because if you realize that with some of the hospitals or some of the healthcare providers that you have, you realize some of these healthcare providers appear to be having frequency of claims, you also want to check. So it's not just for you to wait until when certain claims are made by the healthcare providers, even by the enrollees. You probably want to pick up a call. How did it go? Some healthcare, some health insurance companies now are engaging via WhatsApp. So they'll send you a message. Can you confirm the service provided was good and all of those. So it's time for you to adopt some very important biometrics, facial recognition, fingerprint, even when they go to the hospital, take some videos, require some videos. So those are things that you need to put in place just to also mitigate or prevent some of the risk of fraud in some of these things.
All right. Okay, cool. Thank you so much. So, how can this one, Asaf, if you are here, please take this for me. How can insurance companies balance fraud and risk mitigating costs and coverage when managing high risk exposures like liabilities or supply chain disruptions? Asaf?
That's a complicated question.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah,
Well, in risk, I've not turned on my camera because my internet is not too strong where I am,
yeah, it's
unfortunately.
fine.
Um, Risk management is always a balance. It's a balance between um, the business working as it should, and then you protecting the business also. So it's difficult to have a one size fits all response to this. It depends on what the business wants to do and their risk appetite. So if you choose to tighten things, it means you protect yourself, but you run the risk of losing business down the line. But let's not forget, when it comes to managing fraud risk, there's a key part of it, which is communicating. In my earlier submission, I mentioned people having the perception that insurance companies are fair game when it comes to fraud, because after all, when you give them your premiums, when it comes to collecting, it becomes a long story. So maybe communicating with your customers, look, this is how the claims process works. This is the information we need from you. This is how this whole thing works. It helps a long way, because you can have all the nice hard controls, the AI, biometrics, all those things. But if people don't feel bad about defrauding you, they are very happy to do what they can to. You always have a fight on your hands, always trying to fight fraud.
Mm.
When people genuinely have claims that you can spend your time and efforts trying to satisfy. So communicating, clear communication really helps with all stakeholders in this, especially customers. Yeah.
All right. Okay, cool. Clayton, if you're around, there's this interesting question here. It says, what is our view as a panel, what is our view on the vulnerabilities of companies to regulators who or inspectors who assess our database? And my understanding is that the regulators have a way to assess the database of the insurers. So is there any vulnerability in there? Is Clayton on?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Yeah, again, I think that's a difficult one
Yeah.
to to answer, conclusively, because I think that would depend on the regulatory nature of the assessment,
Yeah.
and the requirements for that, coupled with data privacy requirements and clients' contractual obligations to our clients.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Okay. Thank you. Sheriff, anything from your side on that one?
Okay, so none from my side.
All right. Okay, cool. Then let me take and participants, there are a lot of questions, and I'm not sure we're able to take everything. So please, if your question is not read, what will happen is that we would email the answers to everyone so that at least the question and then the answers to everyone. Just we'll take about three more, and then we'll bring the session to an end. So the last but two is, how crucial is the support of state investigation bodies in curbing insurance fraud? Can insurers fight this alone? Sherry, if you want to say it, or Asaf, we've
No, no,
mentioned.
it's not a Lone
Go ahead.
Star game here.
Yeah.
Working closely with law enforcement helps a lot.
Yes. Yes.
Working closely with other insurance firms also works very well.
Yeah.
Other jurisdictions, they do that, where they share information across the financial services. It really helps, because if you go it alone, you are only knowledgeable about the information that this potential fraudster is giving you,
Mm.
and your ability to verify some of these things are very limited, especially in our context where records of properties and addresses and people's names, it's very difficult to really verify. So collaboration, close collaboration within the company itself, all the various units in there, and then with other insurance firms, other financial services firms, law enforcement, it really helps.
Mm.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Now, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you so much. Let me read the last but two, and then we'll read the
Yeah,
final
just
question.
quick
Okay,
one.
Dr. Situ.
Yeah, so I think I just received a
Uh-huh.
communication that my life they want to just share one or two things. So if you
Oh,
could,
wonderful. All right.
yes.
Okay. So if they are ready, Ben, my producer, kindly give them permission for me. But let me take the question and then how do we balance data privacy rights under the Data Protection Act with the regulatory need to share fraud intelligence across insurers and public institutions? And I'm reading this in conjunction with the question that was asked earlier.
Okay, so I want to give a shot.
Mm,
When it comes to data privacy, the Act, Act 843, the Data Protection Act for Ghana, and equally any other data protection regulation, when it comes to issues pertaining to the public good or national security, there's kind of, for want of a better word, a waiver. Let me use that term. So if the situation hampers on national security or the good of the general population, the right, you may not have the right to exercise that right. Basically, that is it. So it's on a case by case basis. So basically, that's what I can add to that.
all right. Okay. Thank you. Asaf, any reaction to that?
Yeah, so the Data Protection Act allows insurance companies to take the data they need to do their work. So
Mm,
once what they are collecting is what they need to assess properly what they should be charging for premiums and what have you, and then to keep monitoring that they are within their rights to do that. So the challenge comes when they go overboard and they are collecting more than they need to. So that's why it's important for the
mm,
right policies to be there. There's a considered approach to it. You
mm,
have your lawyers there guiding the process as well as the risk people, so that you know where you are within the bounds of the law to do that. But usually for these purposes, you are given a lot
mm,
of latitude because you need to protect your business. And you the customer coming there, you are um, you are asking the insurance company to take a risk. So they
mm,
also need information they need to assess that risk properly. So you have to
mm.
sign up for that. So that will be my response. Thanks.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much, Asaf. Dr. Situ, as the My Life person
Yes,
ready.
they are. I think they are ready to speak.
Okay, please. And who is speaking, please, if we can.
Yeah. So if they can unmute, what else is your? Are you there? Maybe Ben should unmute them for us.
Yeah, from user them.
Okay, cool.
Okay. So they can go ahead. Yeah.
Okay.
So
So, okay, so I see some hands up. Mr. Ebenezer Odru, please, you're welcome to speak.
Yeah, good morning,
Good
Richard
morning.
and the panelists. Can anybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll first of all thank Deloitte for this webinar because I know most board directors and senior high-level executives will pick insight from here to help their organizations. For what we realize is that most of the times the board and executive governance do not they lack the technical prerequisites to initiate a cyber governance policies and also get a buy-in from professionals to also even assist their institution. Something cybersecurity or information security is not even part of their mandate. So they do not look at the technological and then the cyber safety of systems and whatever business they run. So I will thank you for this opportunity. And Sharif have said a whole lot, and Doctor also brought in the other stuff. I know when he was saying the hacking, people were getting afraid of the hacking. So I was going to tell Doctor to slow down and just use vulnerability assessment, on the on the lighter note. I want to share few on the governance perspective.
Yeah.
Our professionals, which is the cyber professionals, security professionals, should try and strike business make a business case out of the vulnerabilities or the risk assessment, make a business case in alignment with the objective and vision of the organization. then we can get a buy-in from the executive level. And let's also identify an executive person who is interested in technology to be an advocate for us. Because we shouldn't forget, getting an person to advocate for us will also let us get a buy-in. Because even in our absence, he's going to tell his colleagues that this and this needs to be done. And also organizational culture and awareness, as you mentioned earlier, the awareness, you forget to add, see something, say something. That culture of awareness goes very, very far. And let's also identify cyber championship and evangelists in every department to carry on the cyber awareness message to their colleagues and homes. In this way, we can also identify, and incidents will be reported as early as possible. And I will lastly touch on the insurance fraud and the security and law enforcement collaboration. I would say due diligence is very, very key by the insurance companies, because to detect fraud, even from the initial point of registration, there should be a little bit of due diligence to know whatever the person wants to insure, the person is doing, as somebody said, either is a stolen asset or something, or maliciously purchased or procured. We should do some due diligence. We know the characters we are dealing with. So when it comes to claims, at least you have some baseline or something you can use to assess that this thing initially looks suspicious or fraudulent. And the law enforcement collaboration, I would say, among the insurance companies, they should have a working group. They should establish a working group among themselves who meet regularly to discuss current trend and modus operandi, then strategize. But look, like our part of the world, the insurance companies works independently because it's competition. I don't want to work it. You don't want to know my strategy and stuff. But when it comes to security and fraud, it's a shared responsibility. So when you have a common working group that meets regularly, they will tell you, oh, SIC is facing this. So and so is facing it. Old Mutual is facing this. Then we know that, okay, is there a common trend pattern among all the organizations? Is there a new thing? Is there an old thing? Then they share knowledge and strategize also. Law enforcement comes in as and when, depend on the severity of the incidents. That's when they may want to bet. For now, I will say that it shouldn't be the case. Approach them. You can write the national security, the BNI, whatever, approach. They can assign you an officer. Me, my experience, I've worked at the national level before I moved to the UK to do further education. And what I've realized, some agencies, as well the telcos and stuff, they establish connection at the top level and they assign them an officer. Okay, so if you have any issue, even if it's at midnight, call this officer. And he will be there with the person collaborating and assisting from the background. So that helps some institutions. I would say the telcos, because that's when, most of them, and even the other agencies, Nestle and the rest, then there's some assigned officer. Personally, I was assigned to various institutions. Say, if you need to, you call this man. Even if it's night, call him. That's his role. And it goes a long way because from the initial stage, the law enforcement team is aware. They know what you're going. They are advising you. They are updating their bosses. So even when it comes to arrest and some institutions are delaying you, the other can give you men to do what you need to do as early as possible. So that's what I would say with the testing of the fraud and stuff. And even the fraud also, I say that for the awareness creation, they need to establish a log, gift log. With a gift log, they can always log whatever you receive in there for assessment and then verification. I know I've spent my time. Thank you, guys.
Amen. Thank you so much. So the collaboration needs to happen. Yeah, it should happen from now on.
Yeah, collaborate is very important.
Thank
very
you so
important.
much. Yeah. So we'll call Waters. Yeah.
Good morning, Richard.
Good morning, Waters.
And thanks for the opportunity to contribute to the discussion. It's very insightful. This is an important topic for the industry. My life, we started our journey on claim investigation just last year, and the numbers that we've seen are very scary. Last year, just a limited number of claims investigated, we saved more than 3 million Ghana cedis. So we had a discussion at the board level, the need to kind of set up a department, a unit to intensify it. And I think half year, we are saving more than 1.8 million on fraudulent claims. We do both at onboarding, making sure that the right people are being sold to on the cyber security side, we have our control that IT on a daily basis check people who are attempting to hit our system, and we have more than 5,000 attempts just to come within to just maybe steal identity or whatever they want to. But on the claim side, I have our head of operation around me, and I want her to share some insight in terms of the modus operandi. What are some of the things people want to do against insurance, because they think insurance is free money, and so we must take our claim. And so Anita is here. Anita will share a bit of insight and what we're doing in the industry. We have a bit of collaboration, as has been mentioned. We have invited other insurers to join us so that we can share data, because we've seen that one person is having a claim against my life and having the same against the other insurance company. And sometimes, unfortunately, when you check, the claim might have been paid already. So we think that we need to collaborate so that we can solve these guys. I'm repeating your words. These guys from doing what they are not supposed to do against us. So Anita, if you can share something like that. Thanks, Rachel.
Welcome, Anita.
Good morning to everyone.
Morning.
So my name is Anita, and just like my boss said, we have started a collaboration in the life insurance industry. We are hoping to get all life insurers on board so that we can put together a comprehensive database, which we have started already. We already have 4 life insurers on board: Star Life, Hollard, and then the third, a 4th party. This database has given us a lot of insight. First, it's about, we advise the collaborators on how to go about investigations in the first place. So we have guidelines as to how each of these participants should go about investigations. And most importantly, is on-site investigations to gather evidence, because most people think that insurers do not do investigations, but trust me, when you go out there and do investigations, you are going to find out a lot of fraudulent activities. We've realized that from the database we've built so far, the red flags that we have identified, customers with high sum assureds, and you would realize that their premiums does not correspond with their status, their income status as individuals. For instance, teachers or nurses with a very high sum assured. And we also identify that some people will bring in documentations for their claims, but these documents are incomplete or forged. And that is because we've taken our time to study most of the documents that come from hospitals and then morgues. So when you bring documents and you are naming it to come from such institutions, we are easily able to identify such inconsistencies. And then you would find people reporting about their incident, their death. And in a vague way, we put all these red flags down, and then they become our core points for investigations. And sometimes one of the red flags is having a claim right after inception. As far as we realize that most of the fraud cases that we are able to detect are from policies that started not so long. Yes, just after a waiting period, you'll find them putting in claims because, yes, fraud people, some of them are impatient. So they will just come immediately, they wait for the waiting period to end. And then you would find, another red flag is you would find some customers having too much knowledge about insurance. You know, in this part of our world, most people don't pay attention to insurance. Even when you sell to them, a few people are able to understand. And most people buy because they need to. But you find some few people who have so much knowledge about insurance, and we flag this as red flags, and we go ahead and then further investigate. After this, our collaboration and our database has also led us to be able to identify some trends in life insurance fraud environment. We've realized that the fraud reasons that come up mostly, about 45%, the disease, the supposedly disease is alive. You would go for investigation and you will find the deceased sitting, eating his breakfast or lunch, which is very weird. And the second reason is forging of documents. So some of them, the death actually has occurred, but the death occurred during the waiting period or even before the policy incepted. But they would wait and then sign on a policy immediately. After a period, they would lodge a claim with forged documents that does not exist in the records of any institutions. These are the two most trends that we have found that we would want to share with everybody to take notice.
Thank you very much, Anita. That's really insightful. It's well appreciated. In the interest of time, participant, please give us just 5 more minutes. We'll take a couple more people and then we are out. Our time is up, I know. First, let me call Achu. Achu, kindly please be brief for us with your submission. Okay, Achu is not speaking, and so maybe David Tete. If you can be brief for us. He's also not speaking. Mr. Jare, Kwesi Jare. All right. Okay, cool. All right. Since no one is okay, Kofi Frimpong, I think you should be the final one. All right. Okay. So we are not hearing from them. And so we'll want to just quickly wrap up because of time. And so please, as I mentioned earlier, we'll answer all the questions that had not been answered and then we'll share them with you, everyone on the call. But before we leave, let's take the final words of the participants who are available. So Sheriff, you are here, so I'll start with you, then Asaf, and then Clayton.
Okay, thank you very much. To wrap up on this, I'll say as insurers, we have cybersecurity obligations. And when I say cybersecurity obligations, these are things we need to do as business. Let me put it this way. One, I think I've touched on one earlier, but the other one has to do with ensuring that we meet our contractual obligations when it comes to cybersecurity related concerns. So what I mean is we may have agreement with our shareholders, with our customers, with our service providers. Those cybersecurity requirements in there, whether they are from us or on us, or it's on the other parties, we need to ensure that we meet these requirements. And also, finally, we need to ensure that we comply with cybersecurity laws in Ghana. We can talk of the Cybersecurity Act I've mentioned earlier, the Data Protection Act, and also the Electronic Transaction Act. Sometimes we lose sight of it, but our compliance team need to help us to ensure compliance with these acts. Thank you.
Right. Asaf, yourself.
Yeah, so briefly, when it comes to fraud, managing it rests on 3 pillars. So prevention, detection, and an appropriate response. And it's usually best to focus efforts on the prevention side because it's cheaper and you're able to cut a lot of things out of the way, because most of the time, if the thing happens, recovery is difficult. You can't get the thing back, your money back. And a key part of prevention is educating your customers, educating your people, so they can spot some of these red flags. So I was very happy to hear my Life's team sharing some of the red flags that they have noticed from their data. Disseminate this information amongst your team so that they can also look out for these things on your behalf. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Clayton, you muted.
Thank you. And I think we've covered that. I think all the points have been adequately covered. It's been an extremely interesting and informative session. I think the questions have been valid. From my perspective, the most important takeaways are: assess your technology that's assisting you in fighting fraud. Assess your risks on an ongoing basis. In terms of your fraud risks, who owns it? And we all need to ask ourselves this question: when did we last assess our risks end to end from a fraud perspective? And are we comfortable that fraud risks are being adequately managed? Thank you to everyone.
Okay, thank you everyone for joining this webinar. We really appreciate you. Without you, we are not here. We will never be here. And so we say
Richard,
thank you. We appreciate you.
Richard, I think I need to say something before you
Oh,
go.
Dr. Situ, my
I
apologies.
just, do you
Please
want to be
go
fired?
ahead.
Do you want to be fired? Tell me.
My
Okay,
apologies, Dr.
so
Situ, please.
I think it's now very clear that
Yeah,
Deloitte, we don't only do IFRS 17 for insurance companies.
you know.
Yes, we don't only do IFRS 17 for companies. We are interested in the all-round success of the insurance companies. So get to us. Let's start talking. Let's start doing some things, and then let's make your company very safe. So anytime you see me going forward now, don't only think of IFRS 17. There are more things we can do for you. Thank you very much. God bless you all.
God bless you too. And then thanks everyone. We really appreciate you. So we will get it. Please, a link has been shared in the chat box. Please take some few minutes and then fill the survey for us. We would appreciate your feedback so much on this webinar. Thank you all and do have a wonderful day ahead. Bye.
When working with government officials or in countries with a more vulnerable governmental infrastructure, the risk of corruption is at hand. You might think you're paying a standard fee, doing your client or partner a favor, or that you are simply providing whatever is necessary to get things done. But you might actually be participating in bribery or corruption. So, have you thought about what parts of your company are vulnerable to money laundering or corruption? Are you able to identify fraud and compliance risks in your industry and for your business? And if so, do you evaluate those risks as part of your general risk assessment, stating and checking the internal controls that are in place to reduce those risks? In other words, when it comes to fraud and compliance, are you in control?
In businesses operating globally, fraud, bribery, and other financial crimes sometimes occur. It's inevitable. But how do you identify it? Where do you start looking for evidence if your investigation needs to be both fast and thorough? Where do you find clues when there are millions of files, people, payments, and processes to analyze? Deloitte Forensics Methods combines artificial intelligence, machine learning, and network analysis to help solve financial crimes and identifies weak spots in financial processes. It predicts which documents, emails, files, and financial data could contain the facts you're looking for. It narrows down the amount of documents significantly and gives them a rating based on relevance to the investigation, making sure the investigators look at the right data to connect the dots. The system learns from the behavior of a select group of expert reviewers, constantly monitoring and refining its accuracy. Suspicious documents are correlated with suspicious payments and results from interviews to make sure no relevant information is overlooked. And all of this happens at speeds humans simply cannot achieve. Solving financial crimes using AI